It all started with a piece of paper, a finance bill in mid-2024, quietly making its way through the corridors of power. On the surface, it looked like just another government document, but it would soon become the spark for something much bigger. This bill was introduced by President William Ruto's government, a leadership that had promised change and prosperity for all. But the details were harsh. The bill wanted to tax nearly everything: fuel, real estate, even the hard-earned income of ordinary Kenyans. No corner of daily life was left untouched. The government insisted these new taxes were necessary to pay off ballooning national debt and boost much-needed revenue for public services. But for most Kenyans, already struggling with a high cost of living, these promises rang hollow. Every trip to the market, every commute, every bill felt heavier. The new taxes felt less like a solution and more like a punishment, deepening the sense of frustration and betrayal. Ruto's campaign promises to uplift the hustler nation, the everyday Kenyans, hustling to make ends meet, now seemed like distant echoes. While ordinary citizens were told to tighten their belts, government officials appeared to live in comfort and excess, fueling public anger. The disconnect between leaders and the people was glaring. Frustration simmered in homes, on the streets, and in every conversation. The finance bill quickly became a symbol of a government out of touch with its people, a rallying point for discontent. Discontent simmered, then boiled over as more and more people realized they weren't alone in their anger. Protests started small, with a few brave voices, but quickly grew into a tidal wave of resistance that swept across the nation. The government underestimated the anger and resolve of a new generation, one that was digitally connected, informed, and unafraid to speak out. This wasn't just another protest, it was a national intervention, a collective demand for accountability and justice. The streets filled with people demanding fairness, transparency, and a government that truly listened. The government tried to ignore the movement, hoping it would fade. But instead, the protests only grew louder and more determined. The finance bill, meant to divide and conquer, ended up uniting Kenyans across classes, ages, and backgrounds in a way rarely seen before. It was no longer just about taxes, it was about trust, representation, and the right to be heard in the halls of power. The stage was set for a confrontation that would shake the nation's foundations and test its democracy. And this time, the people weren't backing down. They had found their voice, and they were determined to be heard. The real leaders of this movement? Kenya's Gen Z. They stepped up, not just as participants, but as the driving force behind a new era of activism. They organized on social media, not in party offices. WhatsApp groups, Twitter threads, and Instagram stories became their meeting halls, connecting thousands instantly. Hashtags, memes, and viral videos replaced traditional rallies. Their creativity turned every post into a rallying cry, making activism accessible and engaging. They broke down the finance bill into simple, shareable content. Complex policies became easy to understand, empowering more people to join the cause. Every smartphone became a tool for activism. Live streams and real-time updates brought the protests to anyone, anywhere, in the country and beyond. The government tried to block platforms, but the movement adapted and multiplied. VPNs, alternative apps, and creative workarounds kept the momentum alive. Protests spread beyond Nairobi, reaching every corner of the country. From big cities to small towns, Gen Z's message echoed everywhere. Young people who'd never protested before took to the streets. For many, it was their first taste of activism, and they found strength in numbers. They demanded a seat at the table, and made their voices impossible to ignore. Their energy and unity forced the nation to listen. Kenya's youth proved you can't govern the future without including those who will live it. Their movement has changed the rules, and inspired a generation. On June 25, 2024, protests reached a breaking point. Thousands stormed Parliament, overwhelming police and breaching security. Parts of the building burned, a powerful symbol of public rage. The state responded with force. Security opened fire. Dozens were killed, hundreds injured. The government called it a coup attempt, but most saw it as a desperate cry for change. The violence shocked the nation and the world. The protests had become a fight for democracy itself. Trust in government was shattered. The events of that day marked a turning point in Kenya's political history. The relationship between rulers and the ruled would never be the same. With parliament burning, the sky lit orange by flames and the air thick with the sound of sirens, and the nation in turmoil, streets filled with angry voices and the tension of a country on edge, President Ruto faced a choice that would define his leadership and the future of his government. On June 26, he appeared on national television, his face grave as he addressed a restless nation, and withdrew the controversial finance bill, a move that stunned many and shifted the political landscape overnight. He promised open dialogue with civil society and youth, vowing to listen to the voices that had filled the streets. Protesters celebrated a rare victory. Dancing, singing, and embracing in the streets, proof that people power works, and that collective action can bring about real change. But trust was not easily restored. Reports of continued violence, injuries, and loss lingered in the public memory, and abductions cast doubt on the government's intentions, leaving many to wonder if true change was possible. The courts later struck down parts of the previous year's Finance Act, forcing a policy rethink. Cabinet reshuffles followed, even bringing in opposition members, signaling a new willingness to share power and listen to dissent. The protests had forced real change, shifting the balance of power and rewriting the rules of engagement. But the wounds remained fresh. The government learned, sometimes painfully, you can't govern a country that refuses to be silenced, no matter how strong your authority may seem. The struggle for accountability was far from over, and the people's voices would continue to shape the nation's future. Defeating the finance bill didn't solve Kenya's deeper problems. The country still faces massive debt, 68% of GDP, and a persistent budget deficit. Youth unemployment is rampant, fueling frustration and protest. Political instability scares off investors, worsening the economic crisis. The government tried again with a new finance bill in 2025, this time more cautiously. Controversial tax hikes were dropped, but new measures raised privacy concerns. The core conflict remains. The state needs revenue, but citizens can't pay more. The cycle of debt, taxes, and unrest continues. Breaking it is Ruto's biggest challenge. The economic hangover is long, and the cure is painful. President Ruto's presidency is now defined by these protests. He has parliamentary power and a coalition with his rival. But the streets remain restless. Heavy-handed responses have raised fears of authoritarianism. The youth have shown their power outside the ballot box. Kenya is now debating how to balance state authority with citizen engagement. Ruto is on trial, not just for his policies, but for his ability to listen and adapt. The future of his administration and Kenyan democracy hangs in the balance. He must balance the books and the will of the people. In the end, the people have the final say.